Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for coming tonight. My name is Jackie, I work for the School of Engineering. So I just thought I'd start off with talking about the fact that engineering and IT is booming in Australia. So this is from seek.com.au. They released this in April and went into a bit of detail about Australia's booming industries, and you can see there they had 5 booming industries and 3 of the 5 are really key for engineering and IT. And I've sort of picked out some of the more specific areas that they mentioned are really booming in terms of the job market at the moment. So hopefully that gives you a sense of where things are heading. At the university, we're really proud to be ranked number 7 in the world for employability of our graduates. And we have a really high rate of our graduates who are employed within 4 months of graduation. The thing is, though, this doesn't just magically happen by you getting a degree from the University of Melbourne. There's a little bit of work involved that on your part, I guess, and hopefully tonight our panellists can talk to you about how you can take advantage of the opportunities available to you to really maximise your chances of employment. Our course really is aligned with industry, so the curriculum was designed in consultation with industry. You have the opportunity to do industry projects, internships, and all sorts of other extracurricular things as well. So again, please do take advantage of these. Some of the examples that we can talk about tonight is the biodesign innovation subject that Xing completed. We have a mentoring program. There are case competitions available to our students and plenty of career events and employability workshops that Jane can also mention tonight. If you are looking for some more detail on our website, we do have a range of brochures for each discipline as well. So those are really useful for a greater level of detail for each discipline. And that brings me to our panellists. So I'm going to hand over to Professor Andrew Uwe, who's chairing our panel tonight, and he'll ask our panellists to introduce themselves, so I won't do it for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, look, thanks everyone for coming. We have our panel for the industry here tonight to tell you all about their workplace and how they got there, and I guess the successes the Master of Engineering has brought to their lives, right? Now, before I start, I mean, I know there's rumors going around that our competitors from other institutions have said that, Master of Engineering is not a very good degree. These people, right, it has proven otherwise, right? So these are proof to you that you can be successful, you can thrive, right, with the Master of Engineering. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Good, all right. I also want you to tell you right now that we have not paid these people to be here tonight. Is that right? Yeah. So they came with their own free will, right? They came not because of the food, I can assure you, not because of the drinks, because they want to be to tell you of their experience. So without any more delay, right, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. Let's start here at Thomas, right? And would you like to tell the audience who you are, what degree you did, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so my name's Tom Strawn. I am currently working as a consultant at FGA. FG Advisory. We do energy efficiency and a lot of sustainability work. I am currently still studying my Master's of Engineering, and I'm working part-time as I finish it off.
Okay. So how much further are you away from finishing your degree?
So this is the second semester of my first year.
Okay.
So I went through the Melbourne model.
Yep.
So I did my undergrad here, and so got this job when I was coming into my Master's.
Good. So this just shows you how good the Master of Engineering is. You can be successful even before you finish your degree. You don't even have to finish your degree, right, to really thrive in the workplace. Right. Sorry, I can't see your name. Yeah.
Hannah. Is this working? Did that work? Hi, I'm Hannah Hubbard. I also came through the Melbourne model. I did my undergrad here studying the Bachelor of Environments, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. Now the Bachelor of Design, I believe. So I studied both architecture and engineering in my undergrad, and then studied the Masters of Civil Engineering, which I finished at the end of last year. Since February, I've been working for GHD, who are a technical consultancy, mainly known for engineering, but also have consultants in land contamination, architecture, planning, sustainability. And on my first day there, I got sent to work on the North East Link project, which is a big road and tunnel project, basically connecting the Eastern Freeway to the M80. And I've been doing that for the past 6 months.
All right, thank you, Hannah.
Hi everyone, my name is Alison. I also went through the Melbourne model, did my Bachelor of Science majoring in Civil, and then did my Masters of Civil Engineering. I've been with Jacobs, which is also a design consultancy, a year and a half now. And I'm in the water team, so we do a lot of water treatment plant upgrades, wastewater and water treatment, process design, and analysis.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. So I also did my undergraduate here doing Bachelor of Science, and then I did a Master of Chemical Engineering. So I work at CEB now, making beer. So I came in on the graduate program, and now I'm in charge of the fermentation and storage processes. So I just work as a process engineer, essentially.
Do you get to drink while
Yes.
You do.
Hi, my name's Christian. I'm a tunnel systems engineer at Oricon. And again, through the Melbourne model, I did the Bachelor of Commerce and then the Master of Mechanical Engineering. And we're working on projects like the Metro Tunnel that's causing a disruption on Grattan Street for you guys, the Westgate Tunnel, and been working a lot on Inland Rail project, which is a new freight line between Melbourne and Brisbane.
Okay. Now, Thomas, you told me I taught you when you were an undergraduate degree. When you were doing your undergraduate.
Sorry?
I taught you when you were doing your undergraduate.
Yeah. So Andrew had me for ESD2, probably 3 years ago.
Can you be honest? Now, did me teaching you have any influence with you doing mechanical engineering now?
Well, I think because I came through commerce.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was probably my final year. I probably already had done it, but Andrew's actually very funny, as you'd already picked up. So his lectures were very entertaining. So, that probably did help. Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't paid you, right?
No, he hasn't paid me yet, hopefully.
All right, can you pass the mic over to...
Hello, I'm Claudia. I did a Bachelor of Science, moved into Masters of IT for about a semester, and then moved back into Masters of Engineering. During my degree, by the second year, I had a casual role with AM, so it's a geospatial company. I held that throughout my degree and for a year and a half after, so pretty much 5 years all up. During that time, I also had 2 internships, one with City of Darebin and then another one with an IT company. Post-graduation, did a year and a half of consultancy work within the geospatial industry, and then recently moved into the public sector with the Department of Transport as an analyst, and I work on pretty much the network and the PET network and the road network and how that all comes together.
Do you know when the train station at Melbourne University will finish? Do you have anything? Do you have any say or any involvement in that project? At all?
I'm not involved directly. I do a bit of work in terms of walking and cycling to stations. I think they're saying it's 2025 that it's finishing, so we've got a few more years to go.
All right, you can't.
I can't
make
it any faster.
All right.
No.
All right. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Xing. I'm a co-founder of a young medical device startup company. We're called Navi Medical Technologies, and we're making a medical device to improve a delicate procedure performed in newborn babies. I studied a Bachelor of Commerce, majored in economics and finance. I did my biomedical engineering master's here at the uni. I did a couple of internships during my master's and my bachelor's. Worked in consulting, Big Four consulting, and during my master's, I had the full intention of going into consulting in the end, but I was also working on my startup company on the side. But what happened was I got a grad offer somewhere in consulting, had the full intention of taking it, but right before my graduation, we got an offer to grow our startup company in Texas. So I ended up deciding to pick that offer in Texas, and the day after my graduation, flew over to Texas, developed my startup company, and I haven't looked back since. So there's a lot of variety in a startup company. We have to pitch on stage for money. We have to talk to investors. We do engineering work, operations, business. We work with a lot of different people. There's a lot of variety. And regarding biomedical engineering, one of the most common questions I get from students is, okay, Master of Biomedical Engineering, I heard there's not a lot of jobs out there. Is that true? The answer is no. I'm happy to answer questions as to why, but it really depends on where you look. So I'm happy to chat about that later. But yeah, happy to chat later about that. Thanks.
No, so you did the Bachelor of Commerce and then the Master of Engineering. So I would have taught you like Thomas here. Would that be correct?
You would have, but I did ESD 2 in the summer, so...
Oh, okay. All right. So maybe that's why you're in biomedical engineering and not mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you a question. I guess it's appropriate to ask now. A lot of students here would want to know, you were probably at the decision point whether you go to your own startup or it looks like you had a job offers as well. Can you just elaborate why you chose to start, or were there any... What were your thought process, I guess, when you decided to go with the startup instead of going for a normal job?
To be perfectly honest, when I got the grad offer and also the offer to go to Texas to develop my startup, I had the full intention of coming back home to Australia after the program finished to take up my grad offer. But after a couple of months in Texas overseas when working on my startup company, I'll tell you what, I was learning so fast. And I was really worried that if I came back to Melbourne, I wouldn't be learning as quickly as I was over there. So it was a little bit of an inflection point. I spoke to a lot of advisors, a lot of mentors, made a decision to work in a startup company. I'm learning a lot now. I'm not sure how it would have compared to if I took my grad job, but I haven't regretted what I'm doing right now. So it's definitely an interesting decision to make.
Thank you.
So hello everyone, my name's Phil, and I studied a Bachelor of Science and then a Master's of Chemical Engineering with Business. So I finished in mid-year, so June last year. So I've been working at the Geelong refinery, so an oil refinery in down the highway in Geelong, and that's for Viva Energy. And my role is called the MoGas alkylation process engineer. So I work with gas processing, different combustion furnaces, and basically dealing with the daily optimization of the refinery to essentially make more money and try to improve the bottom line for the company. So that's an interesting role for me. It's sort of where I wanted to go with the chemical engineering side of things. And I've got a sort of healthy business focus in my role in trying to improve the performance of the company as well. So it's a good combination of the engineering and business side of things.
Okay, thank you. Now, Jane, would you like to do this?
Hi, I'm Jane Black, and I'm from the Melbourne School of Engineering, and my role within the school is to work with students who are keen to undertake our internship program. So within the Master of Engineering, you have the opportunity to spend a semester in industry. It's an elective that you need to fit into your course, you get credit for it, and it's an opportunity for you to work in an area that's related to your discipline at the level of a master's student. So I'm just here tonight to be able to answer any questions that you might have about how that program works within the school.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Look, we have fed you and we have given you drinks. So now it's your time, right, to start asking questions to the panel, because I do have some backup questions here to ask to get the ball rolling, but I'd rather not use it. All right, so come on. I'll give away. Have you guys finished your degree? No, okay. So I'll give a free Master of Engineering, first class honors with distinction degree for first person to answer the best question. Any questions from the floor?
definitely can be overwhelming at times. It's a lot of time management, but you sort of fall into a balance. So I started working as a structural design engineer in the second year of my undergrad. So I've been working 3 days a week since year 2 through to now. So I've a lot of scheduling, a lot of calendars, and you've got to sort of accept that sometimes you might lose a Saturday to uni or something like that if you do want to continue to work as you study. I definitely think it's worth it though. To be honest, I much prefer being at work, so working on real problems, solving real issues. So it's not like it's a part-time job at a cafe where it's not enjoyable. I'm just clocking in, clocking out. So with that motivation as well, it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, it's all about the balance. A lot of time management, really. That's the key. Yeah. Yeah, that was another issue I had as well. So I wanted to start working as an engineer when I hadn't even finished a Bachelor of Science, so no one really wanted to touch me. So my first job, it wasn't through any programs because they'll only take penultimate. You've got to be doing an engineering degree. So it was actually a cold email. So I sent a few emails out to some design firms that are near where I live. So it was a residential. It wasn't a GHD or an Oricon or anything like that. But it was a great start, and I got to work directly under the managing director of the company. So it was a really good experience. He had probably 40 years of experience himself. So I do think if you're looking to try and get some work experience earlier in your degree, you're not going to find it at the big firms. So I'd suggest looking at the smaller firms because you'll get to work, you'll learn a lot more because you'll have a lot more responsibility. You'll work under people that are got a lot more experience than you would if you went somewhere big. And yeah, I found it very, very beneficial.
And I'm sure when you say cold email, it's not generic email to all companies. I'm sure you did some research on the company before you send an email out. And
yeah, of course.
Because if you send generic emails out, people will just tend to ignore. But it's specific, and it looks like you've done your research. I'm sure people will pay more attention to it. Is that what you're pointing out?
Exactly, because they weren't actually advertising for an intern or anything. There was no advertisement. I just found the admin email, and I said, "Hey, I see what you guys are doing, what projects you're doing. I'm keen to help out." And it was just a normal internship, so I just started over summer and did a few weeks there. And they said, "Hey, we've got a bit of part-time work. If you can manage 2 or 3 days a week, we'll very keen to keep you on." So got lucky in that regard, but that's sort of how you can manoeuvre into a part-time while studying. And that's what I've done for the second job as well. Is I started as an intern, and then they sort of said, "We've got a bit of work if you can manage it." So, does anyone else have any insights?
I actually had a similar problem. I was looking at all the big name companies that I'd heard of, and they only had really formal graduate programs or occasionally vacation programs. So I started looking a bit smaller scale. I actually, similar to Tom, I cold called all my local councils and eventually got the number of the head engineer for Stonington City Council, who answered my call and kind of was like, "Why are you calling?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm actually looking for a job." And he was like, oh, you're right. Send me your CV. And I went in for an interview, or what I thought was an interview, but he'd read on my CV that I play soccer, so he just talked to me about soccer for an hour and then said, "Can you come in on Monday?" And I said, "Oh, well, actually, I'm still studying." So he actually had an engineer going on holiday for 12 weeks. So it was just kind of a serendipity thing. But if I hadn't called, it never would have happened. The 12 weeks turned into another 12 weeks when an urban designer left, and I just started doing some urban design. And then into my final year of my master's, I did 2 days a week there. So it's always worth looking a bit smaller, because often those smaller companies can offer you a casual role, and they don't have the whole big HR formalities, formal jobs and recruitment, so you can just kind of weasel your way in. Yeah.
And once you're in, it's a lot easier, isn't it? Once in, and then when you prove, once you get in a position where you're able to prove yourself, right? It gets a lot easier. It's just difficulties to get the first step into.
I think so. I work for CV's quite a big company, and I have a student with me working at the moment for the next 12 weeks. And so for me, I would recommend that he would continue working for me over the summer and then over the following year while he's doing his final year of work. and that would likely be taken up by the company. So I don't think it's necessarily just small companies that would take you, it's also big companies. You just have to get in with the right person.
I think we all have similar stories by the sounds of things. So like mine with Oricon was my primary teacher, her husband is the commercial manager, and like really distant connection. Anyway, I think I was in third year, maybe even second year of my undergrad, and I emailed him and said, "Hey, can we grab a coffee?" And he said yes. And then from that coffee, like in my second or third year, he sort of knew who I am and he knew I was keen, and he tried to set me up with a job for sort of 3 years. And for 3 years, they didn't have anything. And then finally, I applied for the internship program. And then after I applied, I emailed him again and said, "Hey, I've applied for the internship program. Haven't heard back. Do you know how it's looking?" And then he said, they're not taking anything in the field that I'd applied to, at that time. But he's like, I know you're super keen. It seems like you're, really, diligent and, sort of, I guess, have a lot of drive. I think was what he was looking for at the time. And then they had another role which was doing cost control in the metro tunnel. So he's like, if you want that, that's 3 days a week, and that was sort of what I did while I was in final year uni. And then exactly after a year of doing that, took the step over to mechanical engineering in tunnels, which is what I wanted to do.
Did I hear you right? You said the first job was the husband of your primary school teacher?
Yeah, that was how distant the connection was. Yeah.
So how did you know to be nice to your primary school teacher
I didn't,
all those
yeah,
years
yeah.
ago to get this job now?
Didn't know at all.
So the message is that you have to be nice to everyone all the time.
Yeah,
right?
no,
So
that's the thing. I think
you have to start early at primary school level, right? You have to start early and be nice to everyone.
Literally any connections you have, if there's something there, go after it. Yeah.
Only because it is a point of difference. I actually had 2 of my 3 roles I got from attending the Melbourne Uni Industry Nights. So all of the faculties, they hold industry nights where, they've got booths and everything of the companies. For me, it was going up, signing up to a newsletter. I thought I'd be spammed with information, but then I get an email saying that they were looking to hire, and if you're interested, come in for an interview. The other one was I went and got the card of one of the HR people from another company, and I think a year later I called them up, explained, I met you at the event, and they had a position. So I think for me, it was really about making that instant connection with them, making them remember who you are, and then really following up with that connection. And the third one was just a cold call. It was emailing, every local council and going from there.
Could I offer a slightly different perspective as an employer? So we recently hired our first intern pretty recently, and just a bit of a perspective of what it looks like from an employer. It feels pretty nice, when someone approaches us and says, "Could we grab a coffee? Could we speak to you? I'd like to learn a bit more about your business." From in our shoes, when we hired our first intern, it gives us a bit of a warm, fuzzy feeling to know that people are interested in applying for our own company. So I would say it seems a bit daunting sometimes to really send out that first email or make that phone call. But a lot of people love to talk about some of the stuff, especially when you ask questions about their own company. And if they're really passionate about what they do, they love to talk, including myself, right? So I think the other thing to mention is, when I graduated uni and when I was studying, I think one of my greatest fears of talking to other people was what if I don't have the right skills that people are looking for? What you might learn in your degree might feel a bit broad or not practical enough, or maybe you're looking for more specialist skills. But I would say oftentimes if you do a cold call or a cold email, that means that if they haven't advertised that position, or maybe the position doesn't exist yet, right? Which means that if you have a broad skill set and if you show that you're interested in learning different things, well, they might be able to make a role specifically for you because you're interested in being more general, right? And that's a perspective from an employer myself. So I would advise, it's so the first point is people like to talk, and the second point is being general is a pretty good thing, especially when you're reaching out to early stage companies.
Can I just pick you up on that? You said that you don't mind, you actually like that someone approach you and ask you for a coffee and to talk. So and you don't think, I mean, I don't know about the people here, but I feel pretty, I think if I were to approach a stranger for coffee, I think I'm always a bit self-conscious. I think that he might think I'm weird to ask you out for, coffee is fine for for many employers. I mean, dinner or lunch, I'm sure, is out of the, I mean, it's inappropriate.
Depends.
I assume, but
Depends
coffee is all right.
Depends where dinner is and depends who's paying. I think coffee is completely fine. I think it's just it's a social norm, especially maybe perhaps during uni or after you start working. You realize that everyone just drinks coffee, and especially, I mean, some people, like when I did a bit of my own cold calling to people, and sometimes I would offer to pay for coffee, but then sometimes they're like, oh no, you're just a student, let us pay. People are really open to talking, especially when you're asking questions. When I first started doing my cold calling and asking people for coffee, I actually printed out like a list of questions, like row by row, because I was so nervous to, I didn't know what to ask next, and I didn't know how to keep that conversation going. But I think, it kind of grows in you over time, and you kind of get to learn that, people just want to have a discussion with you. Yeah.
So let me get this straight. So if I ask you out for coffee, right?
Yeah.
I don't even need to pay. I just stand back and then let you pay for it. It's really all right. So learn how to ask. Be brave. Ask people out for coffee and then don't pay for it.
Yeah. There's a bit of an art. You take out your wallet and you say that you're gonna pay, and then you kind of
you have to appear to like you want
yes.
to pay. All right. Okay. Philip, do you have any insight?
Yeah, sure. I guess mine is sort of follows on from what else is saying, but I didn't apply for 100 companies or anything like that. I think and I think a lot of people make that mistake, is that they go out and submit their applications in volume, hoping that in the 100th one they'll get a job. I think you've got to be sincere in your application, and if you're not sincere and you don't apply for a company you genuinely want to work for, it does show in the application. So I definitely took that in my final year and applied for jobs that I actually would have wanted to work for. And it's full-time job applying for jobs in your final year. It's not easy trying to get a job and sending out application after application. So it's worthwhile just sending out the ones that you genuinely would want to work for, and then you'll put a lot more effort into it. You do a lot more research, and you'll come out a lot better from that.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, Jane.
I thought I'd just add in how great it is to hear these stories about networking and making contacts. And I guess, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, yeah, that's all right for those guys. They've got it all together. But once upon a time, they were just like you. And this approach of reaching out to employers and collecting information, not hitting them up for a job, but finding out what it is they do, asking about their business, asking about their career, is a really great way for you to inform yourself and to practice these networking skills, because it's not the first and last time you're going to have to do it. It's a key skill that you need to develop for your whole professional career. Yeah. So it's a really great opportunity for you to start practicing that while you're here at uni, and there's lots of support services, and we run workshops and lots of resources to help you in developing those networking skills. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor?
So I'm not actually sure if they do this combination, or I think it's changed with prereqs. When I did it, all my breadth subjects in commerce were the prerequisite subjects for mechanical engineering. So I think I did 9 prerequisite subjects, such as ESD2 and linear algebra, Calc 2, sort of all those subjects. And then you sort of, like when I did it, you had to know it pretty early on because you got to do all those subjects. I think you can also like add on time to your degree, but 5 years was more than enough for me, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same now. You can do.
Yeah. Okay, so you can do that as well. Yeah. I knew initially that I wanted to do engineering, so I had that picture. And then my logic was I didn't want to do science and engineering because they were so closely related. Like I knew that they would sort of benefit in terms of like you'd be really deeply sort of skilled as an engineer, but I wanted to broaden myself out, and that's where I chose commerce. So I sort of, and in hindsight, I think that was really valuable So Oricon and a few other employers I've spoken to, and even opportunities in which like the role I took at Oricon initially was like a project management cost control role, which needed, well, the commerce degree was like required for that role. So exactly like, I think a few other people have taken sort of jobs in companies that are slightly different to what they want to be. So it sort of helped me there. Yeah.
Shiyum, do you want to answer that question? And then maybe we'll go to Philip after that, because your perspective about chemical with business would probably be appropriate here too.
Yeah, so I did a Bachelor of Commerce and then went into engineering. How easy was it to go from commerce to engineering? Not easy is a short answer. A lot of the breadth subjects were engineering based, which is quite different to commerce. Actually exactly the same as you, Christian. You know, it's a good way to, you know, by the end of a master's degree of engineering, we're all engineers in the end, but you know, we also had a commerce background, which means that it kind of broadens what we're able to do. You know, I knew I wanted an engineering degree in the end, but I didn't know if I wanted to stay in business or engineering, and I figured, well, if I did either engineering or business, I could still go back and do business work. But if I only did a business degree, I couldn't go into engineering. You know, so you can't really go backwards. It's more of a one-way thing. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess now we have the business program, and Philip is one of the graduates from the program. Maybe we can hear from him.
Yeah, so the business program is sort of like a bridge between, if you didn't do a commerce degree, that's where the value is. I think doing a commerce degree and the Master of Engineering is a really good combination if you're thinking about that. But if you still want to do science and you do want to get those business subjects under your belt, the with business specialisation is a good one as well. It's not obviously as complete or as thorough as doing a full 3-year bachelor's in commerce, but you do a number of quite important subjects that I think looked favourably upon by your employer. I think my initial interview with HR at my firm was they actually said that they would not really hire someone who didn't have an understanding of the business side of things. And so they actually specifically went out and sought people either with commerce backgrounds associated with their engineering degree or with some sort of business experience as well. So from that perspective, if you're doing a Bachelor of Science now and tossing up between doing a Masters of Chem Eng or Master of Engineering with business or the opposite, it's worth, I guess, looking at your elective subjects and finding out, because the business specialisation, it takes the elective subjects that you would normally choose and you don't get a choice and you have to do all the business subjects. So I basically looked at all those elective subjects and I wasn't really that interested in a lot of them. And so it was pretty clear that I was pretty happy to do the business ones. So I would have a look at those and toss up, well, would you be okay with your engineering degree without those electives? And if that's yes, then definitely do the business specialisation, because it does add a bit to your degree, I think.
Thomas, do you want to add anything? You're doing a civil with business?
So I'm actually a little bit in between. So I did a Bachelor of Science for undergrad, but every single breadth subject I did was in commerce. So I've got a pretty good spread of everyone on this panel. With the benefit of hindsight, I very much wish I did a Bachelor of Commerce with engineering. I found the commercial problems and sort of the more high-level thinking of the technical problems is much more enjoyable for myself, and that's why I've transitioned to a consultant role at the moment. But yeah, I'm doing the with business, and it's for that reason. I did my first 2 breadths in commerce in my undergrad degree and figured, I really quite like this. So I pursued it further and did commerce the entire time. And then I thought, similar to Philip, I looked at the all of the different electives that are shown there, and I thought they look, the commerce ones, the with business ones look a bit more attractive than just the really pure technical ones. So I went in that path as well, and having business knowledge has been very, very helpful in my career development as an engineer. I've been able to leverage that a couple of times. So it is something that's very favourable to know how to do the technical design, but also know how to deliver the technical design in a commercial way for the company. Very beneficial.
So I've always been very interested in everything and have never been able to choose anything. I went into project management specifically because I like that kind of multidisciplinary approach. And since I started, I've worked, our project itself is very multidisciplinary. I've worked on the structures, the urban design, the tunnels. I was drawing bridges today. I've done some soil and groundwater movement. So for me, it's been a little bit of everything, which is exactly what I wanted. I'm now starting to think I would quite like to specialise or do a bit of serious design work for a while, because I think that gives you a different insight into the design process, because I'm very much high-level management, kind of finance, organisational, resourcing, lots of more people and business-based side of things. So I feel like I'm not actually engineering that much. But the advantage of my company and my graduate program, at least, is we have short rotations in our first year. So I've spent 2 weeks in the architecture team, 2 weeks in the urban design and planning team, and next week I'm going to our water infrastructure team. So a lot of grad programs do have that rotation opportunity. And then next year, we're actually encouraged to spend a full 6 months in a different discipline. So I will get a chance to join a technical team if that's what I want. But at the moment, for me, project management's been very good because I've got to see what everyone's been doing, and then probably through me annoying the various technical leads, I've got them to give me work in different things, because they're like, oh, aren't you just a project manager? I'm like, no, I have an engineering degree. And they're like, oh, great, yeah, do this. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. So it's kind of comes down to me annoying them, but also, getting to see a bit of what everyone does. So that's been good so far.
Alison?
Thanks for the question. When I first started at Jacobs, every project is different, and you get to work with different teams and gain insight to that. And just like yourself, I'm interested in a lot of things, and I didn't know whether I even wanted to be in the water team. I was interested in transport and geotech. But just seeing how diverse Jacobs was, once you're in and get to network with people and get to work with the different kinds of teams, you can sort of decide where you want to be. And actually, funnily enough, I actually want to be in the construction industry at the very beginning, and had accepted a contract with a construction company, and went into my Jacobs interview like, I'll just do it. And they just convinced me that was the reason why I did engineering, was to be in a design consultancy. And I recently got to work in rural New South Wales for 3 months for a construction job. So I got exposure to that construction life. So working 3 weeks, 12-hour days, and then coming back to Melbourne for a week for rest. So I got that exposure to work with companies like John Holland on major projects. So I was quite lucky to have both that design and construction experience, which was really rewarding.
Anything else from the panel about, diversity in the workplace?
Yeah, I guess I'll add to that, because in the first year of my master's, I thought I wanted to be a structural design engineer. I had my heart set on this. I wanted to do bridges. I wanted to do skyscrapers. I was very ambitious. And I did 6 months in a structural design firm. And after that, I swore never again, because actually doing it every single day, and I guess that's the importance of trying to get some industry experience if you can. I decided I didn't want to be sitting at a computer on CAD all day. I wanted that kind of higher level insight. And for some people, they love that. They love the technical, getting it just right, getting something perfect day after day. But I wanted a bit more variety. So as a first year master's student, I had this complete about face, and I was like, oh, what can I do with a bit more variety, a bit more talking to people, different, focus. And that's how I got into project management. Because of, the higher level look at things. You do get into that detail in certain aspects, but sometimes you got to step back and look at the whole project overall, look at the big picture. So it's a good combination of the two. And if I hadn't done that, internship, I wouldn't have known, and I probably would have got more locked into a formal graduate program or something in a more technical team, and then found that out a bit later. So it was really good for me getting that while I was still studying. Yeah.
If you want to work on one problem for the rest of your career, right?
Every day.
Every day, just become a lecturer. Right. And you get to do that.
I should probably
wanna
answer
get
this
this? Yeah.
first. I wanted to be an architect. I still kind of want to be an architect. I think for me, it was a very practical decision, I guess. There's a lot of jobs in engineering. It's a booming industry. Women are really given an equal opportunity as men. Architecture can traditionally be a very male-dominated industry. I had friends working in the industry who were getting paid nothing, doing long days. And I'd always kind of been on the more practical side of the design. So in my undergrad, I got to do both. And then when it came to picking a master's in the Melbourne model, I was tossing up, do I do the architecture master's or do I do the engineering master's? And I guess job prospects wise and also the opportunity to travel. You can really work anywhere in the world with an engineering degree. And you can go into many channels. I met engineers who had ended up in finance, engineers who had ended up in consulting, engineers who had ended up being teachers. So it really was just a good base degree, and that gave me a lot of comfort that I was, even though I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet and what I didn't know what I was moving towards, it was going to be a good choice regardless. It's just a good set of skills, not even the technical side. You do teamwork, you do communication, you do problem solving. It's going to be applicable in basically every industry you go into. So that was really comforting for me, just like this is a safe choice, but it's also an interesting choice. Like you're always moving forward, there's always new technology in the field, there's always new jobs emerging. So even if something doesn't suit you right now, something might suit you in 5 years. So it's a good start, yeah.
Claudia?
Yeah, so for me, my degree was more of a paper that got me through the door. I think it's good to know that it doesn't define who you are and what your career will look like afterwards. It was quite surprising for me, I think, to see how different my career has been since graduating. I anticipate my next role will be completely unrelated to my degree as well, so I think it's just good to know that the skills that you do learn through uni and through graduation will, give you some pretty a solid foundation, but it really doesn't define, your career path. It really is up to you.
Claudia, do you mind just elaborating on it? I think spatial is a pretty small cohort. Do you want to elaborate what made you choose spatial? It just amazes me. We use a lot of spatial technology nowadays. GPS on your phone is one of the technology that spatial engineering would teach you. But we can't get many students into that program. So maybe if you can give a bit of insight of why
a very small cohort that graduate, which means there are plenty of jobs. So most of the students within my cohort, within the cohort recently as well, because I still keep contacts there, most grads come out with jobs already, and that's local students, international students, and everyone, because there's just such a big need for spatial people. What was your question?
Why did you choose spatial?
Why did I choose it? Okay, so I did a really broad Bachelor of Science. Long story short, failed a lot of the engineering subjects and found spatial to be easy. Yeah, but I did enjoy it as well.
That wasn't the answer I was after, Claudia.
Well, it's the honest answer. And because of that, I did enjoy it. So I learned a lot, and I really made the most of my opportunities because of the positions that were available, because of the job opportunities. And through that, it's led me to where I am today, and to a job that I do enjoy, to a career that I do find of value. So, it's a bit different, but I'm being honest.
Yeah, but I don't know what you said before, but the only thing I hear that is there's a lot of job opportunities out there, right?
Definitely. So many.
That's all I heard. Sarah, maybe you'll be pretty quiet. Do you want to give your insight about why you chose engineering?
So I guess as a kid I just liked learning how things work. I'm sure that's pretty common amongst everyone here. And for me, when I actually came to uni, I was tossing up between being just a straight chemist or being an engineer. But doing the Melbourne model, it was really good. I got to do a lot of chemistry subjects and realised I really didn't like being in the lab for such long periods of time. So engineering just suited me a lot better.
Anyone else want to? No, okay.
I think it's interesting. It's hard to know exactly what you want to do, especially when you're at such an early stage. And, I think just based on some of our responses now, it seems like we kind of figured it out when we got that job, but what do you do before you get that job? And I think it's actually a multitude of things. I think sometimes it becomes clear after maybe one experience you might go to. Maybe you have an interesting conversation with someone, or maybe you see like a really cool exhibit somewhere and you want to get involved. For me in biomedical engineering, it was actually when I went on exchange. I went on exchange to a really good university in Switzerland, and I was really inspired by some of the biomedical work they did there. But then that got compounded when I came back to Melbourne, and I did a course called Biodesign Innovation, which really told me about how to commercialize a medical device, right? But did I know I was going to do this like a year ago? No, absolutely not. So I think just based on what you're sitting in the crowd here, and we're kind of telling you, this is, we figured it out, we've got these internships and jobs and everything, and we know what we want to do. I think it's really natural not to know, and I think if you keep on going to events like these, keep talking to people, keep your eyes open, keep being inspired, then you never know what might really inspire you. So I would really encourage just keeping an open mind to some of these things. If we didn't get funding, well, I'm not sure. we might have continued, but it wouldn't have been this quick. So funding is a mechanism to make things happen quicker, and funding was also an opportunity to keep the team together, right? So I think we would have still kept continuing as a company, but I don't think we would be here today right now, hiring interns, doing really cool engineering work. Recently we were in Forbes magazine for the stuff that we do. That wouldn't have happened if we didn't get some of these opportunities, right? But maybe we would have got there eventually, but not so quickly, right? So it's a bit tough to figure out what happened in hindsight, but I guess it all just happened, yeah. So you were in Forbes magazine? Oh, yes. That's pretty good. Can I talk to you about donations and charity? All the time. I would say being in a startup company, it's quite nice because I think it's a bit of a boom right now. A lot of people are into startups and entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of really cool courses at uni and all around. And I think being so young right now, there's a lot of media surrounding young startup company people. If people like to interview us. Just 3 weeks ago we were on TV for something that we did like a mini Shark Tank thing, and we pitched on stage and we won this prize, spoiler alert, and we do pitches all the time. We get a lot of media exposure. It's really cool being in a startup company sometimes, but 2 years ago, like, I couldn't imagine myself being on stage pitching to some of these people. I used to get scared just standing in front of the class, updating what our project was doing, right? So I think things happen pretty quickly. There's a lot of variety. It's not easy. I don't want to mislead anyone. It's really tough, but that just makes it even more challenging when something works out. Yeah, it's always nice to be young. I can tell you that. Always nice to be young. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it is nice to be young, but sometimes I wish I was older. So I gave a presentation recently, and I have my picture on the slide deck, right? And then after we finished pitching, we had an advisor like point out my picture, and it's like, can you go back a couple of slides? We did. We flipped back, and he's like, Xing, you look too young in that photo. Wear different glasses, change your hair, make it black and white. I don't care, but you look too young. People aren't going to respect you, And recently for the Forbes thing, one of the questions I got asked was, is being under 30 an advantage or disadvantage in your industry? I answered that sometimes yes. It's good to, it's nice to be young, especially in biomedical engineering, because it's such a trendy area, medical technology is advancing really quickly, and I'm a young engineer able to grow with the industry. But I made a joke in one of the responses in saying that, but that doesn't mean I don't put on a different pair of glasses when I meet an investor, So sometimes it's nice to be older, but sometimes it's nice to be young as well. I can tell you, it's always nice to be young and promising. And you know what? When you are no longer young and no longer promising, right, you really hate the people who are young and promising.
No, I was just joking.
So I think chemical is quite similar to biomedical, a bit closer than civil perhaps. So I just did straight chemical engineering, no business. And for me, I didn't have a problem getting jobs. I'm pretty sure I was the most successful in getting offers from my course. It's just how you market yourself, essentially. And I think, I don't want to offend anyone else, but the commerce stuff is quite simple to pick up. The basics, anyway, is quite simple to pick up. Because you're an engineer, you're good at maths, presumably, and you have quite a clear way of thinking. So it's, if you just have a logical problem-solving method, you're going to be completely fine picking it up.
Okay, so I think that answered your two questions there, right? Yeah. Who else?
I think I was a little bit like you. The elective subjects in my master's degree seemed more attractive than the business. And so I also started quite late even finding internships. Like I saw my friends doing internships since bachelor and I just thought, you know, get high marks and you'll get a job. So I was pretty worried in building my resume. And so I probably started that late in my third year of my bachelor. And just getting into events that you're interested in and volunteer work, it shows that you're more than just an engineer. Don't just have that mentality that marks are going to get you a job. It's things like EWB, you know, show that you're personable. What do you like to do? Sports or something like that is always attractive to employers.
Yeah, I guess it's same for me. I had so many extracurriculars, and I found I had a few various assessment centres, interviews. They didn't want to talk about my degree. They wanted to talk about the other things, because if they've got 500 applicants who all have a similar degree on paper, talking more about your engineering is not something different. So you've really got to focus on what makes you different and what makes you stand out from your cohort. And I think, yeah, it can be anything from a language, travel, volunteer work, sport, just something. And if you're talking about it in an interview and you're coming across as passionate, they'll be able to share your excitement and see that, oh, you're not just another student. You've got something that drives you, that makes you interesting, basically. And for the business question, I actually firstly enrolled in civil engineering with business. And then I decided that I couldn't give up those electives, and they ended up being my favourite subjects at university, all my electives. And since I probably learnt the most I'd learnt about business in the first month of my job when I did payroll, timesheets, a lot of Excel. So I think it is something you would have to pick up on the job, and so many people around you are experienced. So it's, for me, I would like to study more in-depth business now, but I picked it up very fast. And a lot of it came very easily because we're already good at maths, we're already good at Excel, we're already good at things that people will struggle with. So it was a steep learning curve, but it happened right at the beginning, and I've felt comfortable ever since, yeah.
And Claudia, feel free to say that business is easy as well.
Business is easy. I actually regret not doing a few electives within business and commerce because I was very technical. But in terms of selling yourself, my biggest advice would be to join a committee at university, so a club, a political club, an industry one. Really get involved because you learn so many skills about project management, teamwork, communication, planning, budgeting, and those skills are so transferable, and you can just sell yourself like that at an interview. Because that's all I talk about these days when I go for interviews. It's the work that I do outside that makes you quite different. Because technical skills are one thing, but dealing with clients and getting results and driving change and working with the team, that really sets you apart. So if you can, get involved with what the university has to offer, because there's so much. There's the student ambassador roles. There's volunteer, open day, volunteer at conferences, so you get a free ticket to watch a bunch of research people, which is interesting, but then you also meet a lot of employees there and you get a lot of skills from them as well, so really get your name out there and get involved with whatever you can get your hands on.
I always did sport. I didn't really do that kind of academic side of things, but I found sport's an easy one because every job interview question you get about problem solving, communication, teamwork, if you're caught out in an interview, you just go, oh, well, when I play team sport, I communicated, I problem solved, I have a competitive spirit, blah, blah, blah. And it's a good fallback. It works for
That's
everything.
a really good point to note because I think in particular multicultural communities lack that background in sport. Their parents don't push them to do that, and sport is such a great way to really develop leadership skills, and you learn with so many different people, and it's a really empowering area when you play sport. So yes, sport.
That's another one if you don't want to go to conferences.
Yeah. Well, no,
Join
sport
a
is
team.
great. Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Can I just add something?
You want? No, you may not say so. Yeah, sure. Sure.
He's the boss. I'll be quick. Just to answer your question a little bit further, perhaps to give a bit more of a bigger picture, employers certainly tell us, and the job market at the moment tells us that industry are interested in engineering skills in general, and you might hear them referred to as STEM skills, which you're probably familiar with. And, our panel here tonight are all working in engineering of some kind, but we could equally have graduates from engineering and they'd be working at one of the banks, perhaps in public policy, government, a whole range of different areas where their skills are still being well utilised. I think someone said before, it was a good base for them.
Okay, how much more value do you get from the Master of Engineering as opposed to yourself? I think I have to be picky. Can you tell me what you're going to say first before you answer this question? No.
I don't want to offend you, but the Bachelor of Science doesn't really prepare you to work doing many things. You're not very specialised. So doing the Master of Engineering, the first year of Master of Engineering, that's when you actually start doing engineering subjects, really. ESD 1 and ESD 2 are pretty generic skills. Sorry. So I think if you actually want to be an engineer with those sorts of problem-solving skills, you need to do the Masters. As a Bachelor of Science, you're not really qualified to do too much, really.
Any
to
other?
be honest.
Yeah, I think I felt like an engineer when I did my capstone subject for Masters. So in your last year of your Master of Engineering, you'll be involved in a large capstone subject where it's a lot of project-based work. You may work with another partner, and I think that's when you start really, you become responsible for something, and it becomes your own project, and it's a lot of work. And I think it was at that moment I felt like an engineer. I was actually in the lab using breadboards and oscilloscopes and everything, but I didn't really do that much in my undergrad. So I think that's something that you don't really get the chance to do in bachelor's, I feel, but it's very specific to masters. So I would say that's one of the really unique things from doing a master's degree as opposed to just bachelor's.
From your question, I guess you're in the decision. You are trying to make a decision if you enroll in the Master of Engineering or not. So I'll be keeping an eye on you. Look, I think we have probably about 5 minutes left, and there's going to be a networking session after this. There'll be food, there'll be drinks. Still, they will be coming out in the next half an hour. So what I would like to do, right, the last question is that I know we all said that networking is very important, right? It's a very important skill to have. And I would like you guys to give your tips and tricks on how to network in a room full of strangers, how to go up and talk to strangers, because I expect you guys to be doing that, right, after we finish. So if you can give me your top 2 or 3 tips about going out, talking to strangers, how do you do that? I think we all find it very difficult to do.
All right,
you probably have to do it most often, so yeah. Well,
yeah, I have
you
to
don't have
network
coffee
a lot.
here, all right? No coffee, so you have to make deal with drinks, wine, and juices.
My top 2 tips is do your research on who you're talking to. So we have a couple of names up there. I'm pretty sure all of us have some kind of social media LinkedIn presence or something. So at least, you know, if someone likes to play soccer, maybe if it's Hannah, then you'd be like, oh, I play soccer as well. And Hannah doesn't even have to know that you looked her up on LinkedIn. Sorry, Hannah. Just giving people tips on how to talk to you. So I think my first advice is do your research. And the second part is try to remember people's names. You know, name tags help, but, you know, it's music to someone's ear when you remember someone's name and when you follow up with them after. So those would be my top 2 tips.
Practice. So, you know, start at these events and really just get to know each other and then get to know us and, you know, the facilitator, the cohort representatives as well, because that's how you really start to develop, you know, networking, communication. And if you can't, then fake it till you make it. You know, try to talk about crap, but really that's how you get started, and that's what I live by. I'm, you know, originally quite introverted, but yeah, practice and fake it till you make it.
Okay. Now, it's going to get more and more difficult as you go along because you're not allowed to repeat, right, any advice that was given previously, all right? So, Christian.
My tip is ask questions. So just start with, hey, what do you do? That helps. And then just keep asking. So like just follow with questions until you literally stop and then say just thanks. And then, yeah. So like as Xing said before, people are happy to talk about themselves. So yeah, just ask questions. Like that was something my dad taught me early on. If you want to have a conversation, you have to ask questions. Like you can't just stand there and do nothing. Everyone's interested in sort of, you know, speaking and engaging, but yeah, if you stop asking questions, then unless they're asking questions back, then yeah, that's what works well. And take notes on your phone afterwards. That's what I do. So once you've finished, so I'm going to steal a few. Yeah. I just like when you finish talking to someone, write a few notes, something you learned, and then you got that there for later.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually really appreciate that when you take notes and then when you follow up with them and then you talk about that same note, or like how are your kids going, or how's soccer, or whatever. I think my tip would be to actually be interested when you're asking the questions, and if you're not, maybe
pretend to be interested.
Yeah, okay. Pretend to be interested, or maybe they're not the right person to be talking to.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, like your body language can come across as something really important in a conversation, and just keep simple things like keeping your eye contact, putting a smile on your face could help a lot.
I guess kind of from a different perspective, if you're kind of, I was very quiet and I didn't really feel comfortable talking to people, and then I actually got a part-time job in retail, and this was a bit out of my comfort zone, but I attribute that now to my comfort with talking to people, going up to strangers. So maybe your part-time job's not engineering, but maybe you can get something else out of it. A job where you learn to talk to people, where you learn to communicate. So I still attribute that comfort to selling clothes to rich ladies.
Mine's kind of similar to Christian. Like, obviously, you want to ask good questions. Ask questions, but I think they should be good ones as well. It gets pretty frustrating when there's a line of 10 people and they just say, "Oh, what do you do?" And the next guy comes in, "Oh, what do you do?" So, like, if you can, I know it's not always easy, but if you can think of a meaningful question to begin with, and then elaborate more on that, because what I do is, it gets a bit boring after the 15th time. But I'm happy to talk, of course, so don't avoid me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think just on that one, you want to stand out with your questions. And there's a lot of people will go up to a recruiter and they'll ask about your grad program, and they just want to know about the grad program and about the job that's on offer or about the internship that they're being offered. And I'm sure these people get the same. I get LinkedIn messages every 2 weeks, and right at the bottom of it, there's always, can you tell me how do I get a job at your company, or how do I, get an internship or something? And it just sort of defeats the sincerity of the whole message or the whole talk that I'm having with someone when they immediately, you can sort of see, they just want a job or something. So I think if you're going to go talk to someone like a recruiter or an engineer who's at one of these careers fairs, just don't even ask them about their grad program or anything. Ask them about what they do. Ask them, what's a day in the life of an engineer at their firm? What exactly, are they doing in the mornings? And, how do they, where do they see themselves in 5 years? Just steer away from the grad program altogether and act sincere about the industry that they work in and find out real deep details about that.
Okay, thanks. Jen, do you have any tips?
I guess one would be don't assume that someone can't help you. So, we've heard a lot tonight about using your professional network, but also think more broadly. Who do you work with in your part-time job? Do they know that you're looking for a grad role or an internship? Do they know that what you're studying? Maybe it's the rich lady customer coming into your store, or the person you make coffee for every weekend. Let them know what you're interested in, because probably the majority of them, they won't sort of take it on board, but maybe 2 or 3 might. And it actually leads to a worthwhile networking opportunity for you.
Yeah. And I guess, I have a lot of difficulty talking to strangers as well. And I still am very shy, I guess, in public. So, but one thing you can learn is that if you look up, go to YouTube, right, there's a lot of courses on networking skills or small talk, right? And I find them pretty useful too. All right, okay, so I think we should end this night now in the formal. Can you please join me in thanking the panel here for their time?